I honestly do feel that you should just take up space and don't fit in. Honestly, I think it's so overrated.
Welcome to Platform Z, or Z, whichever you prefer. Join me, Noah Lennon, as I speak with my generation about a range of topics and themes in the present day. Hey, thank you for tuning in to the 10th episode of the podcast. We made it to double digits. Woo woo! Today I'm speaking with a fierce, valiant, and adept guest. She's a model, an actress, and a writer. Not only is she represented by one of the UK's leading modelling agencies, Nemesis Models, she is also represented by the rising acting agency Urban Talent. She is an alumnus of the University of Manchester with an LLB degree in law, as well as an alumnus of National Youth Theatre and of Identity School of Acting. She's a good friend of mine and a truly amazing soul. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah Duff.
Oh, that's actually such a nice intro. Bless your heart. Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Of course. Yeah, so as you may have seen from the title, today's episode is on the dismantlement of diversity, equity, and inclusion, commonly abbreviated to DEI. Not to be confused with DUI. We don't do that or promote that over here.
Period. No drinking and driving, guys. Come on. I mean,
nope.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we don't even drive. So
exactly. Neither of us. Hashtag
nope.
Passenger Princess.
Yep. That license is got to come. I don't know when, but it's got to come.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, in this episode, we'll be discussing the purpose behind DEI, what it's doing, how it's useful, but we'll mostly be focusing on the dismantlement of DEI. To begin, Sarah, would you like to start by explaining why you wanted to talk about this? What provoked you to bring this onto the podcast?
Yeah, I think the main thing was that being in university and high school after 2020, I went back to my last year of high school in 2020, just after the murder of George Floyd. People were making a huge deal out of Black History Month. And I think it has been that way for the past few years. I'll say from 2021 till probably about last year. But I have recently started to notice a huge decline. I don't know about you, but last year, Black History Month, 2023, 2022, there was always some kind of event, or there was always some TV program coming out, or some expose, or some really interesting conversations happening on the main stage and in society generally. This year, it has just been quiet, man, if I'm honest. I often think that our Black History Month is often informed by the Black History Month that comes before ours, which is February in the United States, which is a whole other thing. Why give them the shortest month? Anyways, but I think often our response is semi-informed by their response. I think race and America kind of go hand in hand. And so the Trump presidency and his huge dismantlement of DEI on a legal scale has definitely affected us in the UK. And I think you can really see it in how pretty silent this Black History Month feels. I mean, apart from Dave's album being released, I can't think of any big events that have happened this year in terms of Black history or conversations about race in the UK.
And it's so important to recognize that this is an ongoing process. This is not something that will have a completion date. This is something that we have to talk about. We have to have
conversations like this have to continue, I think, until, big steps like dismantling racist institutions or racist ideology are properly completed. But also in Black History Month, I think we should just be celebrating Black voices, Black creativity, Black innovation.
Yeah, 100%. This is a self-promotional break. Well, not really. I actually just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody who has donated to my Rising for War Child UK fundraising page. At the time that I'm editing this, we've raised a total of £500 for War Child UK, which is amazing. That's £500 that can go a long way in helping the lives of many suffering children in places of conflict and war. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Going back to Trump, there's now ICE. I don't know if you've heard of ICE.
I have, yeah.
But what they're doing is insane in America.
Yeah. It is like the modern equivalent of the South African apartheid brown paper bag test, where you're black if you're darker than the brown paper bag and you're white if you're not. And I think just quickly, it's probably quite important to discuss what DEI even means. So it does mean diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in some cases, some companies also add equality at the end, so DEI and E. However, I do think it's really important to state that the E in DEI every time means equity. It does not mean inclusion.
Oh, did I hear inclusion? No, equality. That's what she said. Yeah, I thought she said that. Great. Okay, bye.
And I think it's really important to note this because equity, in my opinion, is more useful to disenfranchised communities, minorities, than equality is. Equality is like giving everybody the same resources, while equity is providing different resources based on individual needs to achieve fairer and more equal outcomes. And so equity really recognizes that people start from different places and need different support to reach basically the same or similar goals. So it's important to note that.
Yeah, and I think going back to the definition of DEI, this is something that started in America in 1964, with the Civil Rights Act, which is an act that prohibited discrimination in public places, provided for the integration of schools and other public facilities, and it made employment discrimination illegal.
And I think that it goes back to how the dismantlement of DEI is really having an effect on us now because of the Americans' complete and utter dismantlement of it during the Trump presidency that's currently going on right now. I mean, there was a good phrase, I can't remember who said it, but it's one that's used quite frequently, is that America coughs and the rest of the West gets a cold. And you can see that with like the rise of bloody, reform and Farage and those types of things gaining more traction, because as the US moves more right, I think a lot of people in the UK tend to move more right. And you can definitely see that in the time of the Tory government, the Labour Party moved more right to become more centrist. And then that just moves the entire political scale over to one side, unless actually... shout out to the Green Party. They're the only ones holding firm at the moment. But I think it is important to talk about how the history of the US creates this need for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's a big conversation over there because slavery ends and then you have arguably a few months of freedom for Black people. You're looking specifically at the South, do they ever really get freedom? No, not really. Do they ever get reparations? Definitely not. 40 acres and a mule never really materialized into anything. And then most people become sharecroppers where they're paying their ex-enslavers to work on their lands. Then after that, you get years and years of Jim Crow, and eventually the Civil Rights Act comes in. And so obviously diversity, equity, and inclusion is extremely important because quite frankly, it's hundreds of years where Black people have been sort of held back at the sort of race line. If you're to imagine life and society as a race, they've been held back for a good couple hundred years in American society, and they've been held back there with other races, women, and people with disabilities. DEI specifically also, I think, should be increasingly used to protect people with disabilities, especially in workplaces, because I do feel like they're also particularly ignored in society, and that's the only minority that anybody can become part of at any one time. But I do think, to just go back to the DEI conversation, I think that like in general, up until now, my relationship with DEI has been extremely positive. I mean, I've been able to be part of DEI initiatives, and I don't necessarily mean benefiting from them. I think I'm in a sort of unique position as a Black woman in that I experience, all of the issues and good things that come with being a Black woman. But I also think that as somebody who's privately educated, I also have like a certain level of privilege. And so throughout my time at university, I was really overjoyed to be part of DEI initiatives, like mentoring Black students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds on how to get into Russell Group universities. And then I was also part of a university society called Black Girl Space, where we were very heavily sponsored by big companies, as we were a society that was a safe space and also gave career advice and just like sisterhood to Black women at Manchester universities. But I think that it's important to talk about how when DEI is discussed, it is not just corporate environments. And I think one thing I want to make known as we're talking about this, and my perspective is mainly going to center around the Black experience because that's what I experience. But DEI reaches so far. I mean, it can be about economic background, like I said, disability.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought up those different aspects of DEI regarding disability, economic difficulties. It is so important in the creative industry to highlight DEI because I think particularly the creative industry is an industry where it is extremely difficult to break into. It's getting increasingly better. I think as we progress, there's more opportunities, there's more funding, hopefully.
For sure.
And hopefully that continues.
In 2020, a lot of UK companies launched schemes and initiatives to really address racial imbalances. BFI was like a huge part of founding the Anti-Racism Task Force in the whole of European film. Warner Bros. Launched Black Britain Unspoken, which was a short film initiative in 2020. I mean, there was loads of stuff happening. I think the unfortunate thing is that there wasn't enough focus on making it sustainable and on focusing on the long term. Unfortunately, I think for a lot of companies, it was like, this is a storm we have to weather. It's a passing trend. It's kind of turned into a moment as opposed to a movement, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
But on the flip side, what's really important to note is how many more Black people, Black men, Black women that we're starting to see join drama school and drama initiatives, especially in London. We've got things like Kingdom Drama School and Identity School of Acting. And I also do think it's quite important to note that although, you know, these drama schools have started admitting more Black students, doesn't mean they don't necessarily face racism also there.
I just want to add as well, quickly, to shout out Daniel Kaluuya for Centre 59, which is a new initiative with loads of classes. I have a friend that actually is doing them at the moment. But shout out to Daniel Kaluuya for that. And also Stormzy and the scholarship for Cambridge. The Stormzy scholarship is also a big one that should be mentioned. And on that note about drama school, it is crazy that even now, some of the classes, the final year student classes for BA acting, you'll see maybe one Black male or one Black female. And I know this because two of my friends are in that exact position. Two of my Black male friends in drama school are in this position. And even earlier this year, my previous girlfriend, when she was cast in her final third year show, it was a show that was extremely white. The story was extremely white about this Danish white family. And because she was the only Black girl in her class, she was cast as the only Black character really in the play who was completely abused and discriminated against. And so anyway, the long story short was that it got changed, and I pushed for that and she pushed for that. I'm glad it did get changed, but it's just a sign that we have to keep trying and we have to keep challenging, you know, we have to keep challenging.
Yeah. I think the biggest misconception, I think also Julia mentioned this in terms of big systemic issues.
Just for some additional context here, Sarah is referring to Julia Westrup, a mutual friend of ours who was on episode 5 of the podcast. We spoke about defining feminism in 2025. Julia, if you're listening, we love you. Thank you. Goodbye now.
Just because we have one period of time where we have a conversation about something does not mean that that problem's over with. Like, oh, great, we've had the conversation, it's done. No, like there is going to have to be some serious institutional dismantling that's going to have to occur. I just think that it is interesting how when the public viewpoint of something or the public anger around something tends to die down, the works to try and make those issues better also tend to die down. And I think it is becoming kind of more acceptable, or at least not widely noticed by the majority of people.
Exactly. And the one message I would really push is openness. I think if we could all be more open and care for each other more and look at things from both sides of the coin.
Yeah,
don't
100%.
follow one narrative, don't follow one story, and really just make sure that you're aware of your unconscious bias, but the biases that you hold, the privileges you hold, and really hold yourself accountable, but hold others accountable, and just ensure that you remain open and you remain curious and willing to change.
100%. I really agree with that. I think that's a really good point. Often, I think there's an issue when people talk about issues like racism or sexism, people get very defensive. Number one, if you're offended, I might be talking about you. Time to check that and go back to the drawing board. That's not on me. But for the most part, I just think that like be open to have conversations, because I think that nothing can really change unless proper conversations are had. But I also think nothing can really change unless people actually get used to being uncomfortable for a sec. Like not everything in life's going to be great. Not everything in life's going to be super comfortable. Do you know what I mean? Like there's conversations that you're going to have that are going to be uncomfortable, but you have to deal with that to be able to fix an issue.
Facts.
I do have one message to young people. If you feel like you don't fit in, if you feel like you're in the wrong environment or place, or you don't feel represented, I honestly do feel that you should just take up space and don't fit in. Honestly, I think it's so overrated. I didn't wear my hair in an afro for years to fit in. I wore my hair in like, Eurocentric styles to make sure that I wouldn't encounter racism at boarding school. I made sure to wear it in certain ways to make sure I wouldn't encounter racism in the street. And honestly, anyone who wants to say something is going to say it probably anyways. And I think that our ancestors, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles kind of proved to us that assimilation is hugely overrated anyway. Most of us built this country. Our ancestors built this country. And I think, quite frankly, the biggest form of resistance is always joy. Don't fit in. And by God, please be happy about it. Because eventually you will be the representation for someone else. I think we forget the strangers that stick out to us throughout the day. When you think, oh, that person's really cool. I like those shoes. Or I saw an older woman on the bus the other day and I was like, I like that she just wears her traditional wear out of the house. Like she doesn't feel like she has to dress in a Western way. I think that's really cool and I want to do that. You have and you will be that for hundreds of people in your lifetime. You just don't know it. So honestly, just push forward, resist, and be happy. Yeah, that's my point.
Preach.
Thank you.
Right on. Wow. That was perfect. Moving on to the platform Z, quickfire questions. Are you ready, Sarah?
I am ready. Let's go.
Let's go. What was the most recent thing that inspired you?
Dreaming Whilst Black, season 2. Yeah, very inspiring.
What is your goal for this month?
To get back into and watch more theatre. Just feel like theatre's been taking a bit of a backseat. I've been watching a lot of films recently. There's been some great films out, to be fair, but I really want to get back into a little theatre bag,
What's one bad habit that you need to get rid of?
Oh, this is very specific. But coming from being an opera singer and singing, I have this real need for perfection all the time, because I think that's what you're striving for all the time as an opera singer. I want to stop doing that. It's such a bad habit where I will literally be singing just fine and then I hear one wrong note and I completely stop. So bailing out and quitting is the way of putting it, but specifically in a musical context.
What does joy look like to you?
I think I touched on this before. My more worldly answer is that joy is resistance and not conforming. But I also think in a more spiritual way, I think joy is music. Joy is musical inherently, I think. Yeah, that's my
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, 100%. I can't go a day without music.
I genuinely don't think I could either. This sounds so insane, but I think even listening to something sad when you are sad is somewhat joyful, because you're yep, I'm just feeling this right now. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Joy is music for sure.
Wow, I love that.
Have you ever done a sound bath? That's so left field.
No.
Sound baths are amazing. You'd love it. It's you lie on the floor and they just play sound and frequencies. I have a Nepalese prayer bowl from when I used to live in Nepal. And it's that, but on a huge scale, and your whole body just vibrates sometimes. Brilliant. It's all your cells are alive sometimes. That's joy right there. And it's peace at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's on my bucket list now.
They have one in Manchester. I'll send you the link.
Okay. When have you felt the most love?
Oh, that's a good question. I think when I found out my dad was ill and I had to travel to Ghana, the amount of people that just rallied round and were there for me. But also just the fact that when I met my dad's family, I was this does not feel like love. Do you know what I mean? And then I'd go back to see my mum and I'd be yeah, see, this is real love right here. That was when I felt the most loved, to be honest.
What's the one thing you'd change in today's society?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think what we were talking about earlier is just like openness. Do you know what I mean? I think that conversation is extremely important. And I think it's when there feels like there's a lack of freedom to have conversation that people tend to come up with their own conclusions and then spout hate towards others. Now, this isn't to place blame on anybody for not having conversations. For example, I'm not going to have a conversation with a racist, for example. That's not my bag, not my business. I'm not here to educate them. But I do think in general, I think a lot more issues could be solved if people could actually just have like quite open conversations with each other.
Yep. Okay, that's the end of another episode. Thank you guys for listening. And thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Your time.
Hope, you enjoyed. I had fun.
I loved it. Thank you. Please take a moment now to tell the listeners where they can find you, what you've got going on, what you've got coming up.
You can mostly find me on Instagram. And the Instagram is at Sarah_EK_TZ. But I think in terms of what I've got coming up, I think, going back to your last question about what are your goals? I think that I want to get back into my activism because I was a big activist when I was younger. Eventually just got too much, but I think I'm older, wiser, a little bit more level-headed now. I'd love to get back into that. So, stay tuned, guys. I'm writing some things. I might release them. I might not. Stay tuned, I guess. That's it. But thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Of course. And that will all be linked in the description.
Period. Shameless Instagram plug.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. Take care. See you next time. Goodbye. Cool. Wait, just say like bye or something.
Bye, guys.
Perfect.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.